So yeah, it's been a long time, you guys. I started a new job. I quit my band. I quit my radio show, and all of a sudden, I found myself with time on my hands to spend some time on old and new, but I'll get back to that on a later date. Passion projects, including the one you are listening to right now, the Why Never To podcast. That being said, I would like to take this one to a more serious place than my previous episodes. As some of you may know, I have been battling type 1 diabetes for the better part of 16 years now, being diagnosed with it when I was 19 years of age and about to head off to college and into my party years. And party I did, mind you, dear listener, but that's not here or there. Let's start at the beginning. And for those of you not in the know, I'll give a small little insight in what diabetes is like, and most important, how it impacted my life and that of those around me. T1D, type 1 diabetes, or diabetes mellitus type 1, if you want to get specific, is an autoimmune disease that is often diagnosed in small children, and it's mostly inherited through genetic failure from either mother or father's side. Like I stated before, I was 19, hardly a small child, and both my mother and my biological father weren't blessed with the affliction, lucky for them. My father, however, died of a completely unrelated medical condition when I was a mere 1.5 years old, and my mother could recall vaguely him having an uncle with type 1 diabetes, though it would never really become certain. One thing that was for sure, though, was that I was screwed. I remember losing a lot of weight in a matter of weeks. From 87 to a little over 70 kilograms. I also lost clear sight, like I constantly was walking through a thick fog. I was thirsty all of the time, and I had to use the loo every 20 minutes or so. Since I never really were ill at that time, I figured it was just a simple flu. So I went back home for my job as a busboy in a care center, calling in sick, thinking I'd be fine the next day. Little did I know that my life would never be the same. My mother, smart as she is, already suspected it was diabetes and carefully tried to explain that it might be worse than expected. The next day, the Monday morning, I called my GP and went over for a test. Although my own doctor was out, I got the results from his replacement, and when that little device said hi, and not in the friendly how are you doing kind of way, it was official. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. At first I couldn't get a hospital appointment, but thank God they were able to squeeze me in, and after a few hours I got my first shot of life-saving insulin. The nurse, a lovely older woman called Will, explained to me what happened and what my life would look like going forward from that moment. Basically, a healthy person's body produces insulin to battle the sugars, or carbohydrates to be exact, that get taken into the bloodstream via food and drink. Insulin uses that sugar to create either fat or energy for the body to store or to use, respectively. Unfortunately for me and a lot of others, the body has a tendency not to work properly. With type 2 diabetes, the one that most of you know, the pancreas is damaged by obesity or age and can't work properly anymore. This can often be battled and even cured by diet and exercise. Type 1 diabetes, on the other hand, is a case of the body simply seeing the cells the pancreas creates as a foreign threat, and the immune system destroys them, leaving all of the sugars in the body untouched in the bloodstream. Pretty gnarly stuff that can result in the loss of eyesight, damaged intestines, loss of feet and legs, and even death when not dealt with properly. Fun stuff, I know. You can imagine that I was shocked when I heard this. My body basically hates my guts, and I am never ever getting rid of this horrible situation, being left with daily insulin intakes for the rest of my life. Over the years, I've seen countless amounts of pens, needles, pump supplies, injection sites, hospital visits to the endos, diabetic specialists, eye doctors, specialized psychologists, dietitians, feed doctors, and this coming January, my first trip to the neurology department. That's not even taking into account the amount of calls to suppliers and battles with my healthcare insurance company and the suppliers of my very much needed stock of diabetes related materials to stay alive on a day-to-day basis. I can guarantee you that the whole haha, I drink a large Coke at McDonald's, no I'm gonna get diabetes is going to get really old really fast when faced with the reality of living through it 24/7, 365. But I digress. I can't blame you guys for ignorance much. Just like I have zero idea what it's like to have cancer or asthma. I can't expect others to know what it's like living with diabetes. Who I can hold responsible for their ignorance, however, are insurance companies and healthcare professionals. I am blessed that I live in a country where insulin and the cost of having type 1 diabetes is kept to a bare minimum. However, that does not mean that in the neoliberal shitstorm that I call my home, the Netherlands, everything is always as cracked up as they make it out to be. I talked about the lovely woman called Will a little earlier on. When I was roughly, 6 months or so into my treatment, I got a message from the company covering my health insurance. AZIVO, as it was called, was adamant I pay back the money they spent for much needed materials that I always got from the apothecary up until that point. According to them, I made a written deal with another party to always order my insulin, needles and testing equipment, and I was in breach of contract doing what I did. Being newly diagnosed and barely out of my diapers, I had no idea what was going on, but I was sure I did not sign no damn contract like that. I contacted Will and she went to town on them like only an angry elderly woman can. That was that. But it wasn't the last time I'd get screwed over by insurance or otherwise by a long shot. It was rather the beginning. Even right now this stuff is happening. It is a week or two removed from 2023 and I got a message from my insurance supplier called Just, that is owned by CZ. The Abbott Freestyle Libre 2 that I use on a daily basis to check my blood sugar levels, it will not be sent to me in the same amount during my quarterly arrangements. The Freestyle Libre sensors work for 2 weeks exact, but they don't always work properly and sometimes they break. I used to get 7 every 3 months, plus a handful of regular finger blood pressure measuring thingies. Now they are scaling down, for cost no doubt. I don't think Abbott has any clue how many weeks there are in a month, because from what I can tell, there is more than 4 weeks in a month. Same goes for my insulin pump. Because my sugar levels are too good, I don't qualify for the continuous measuring system that is supposed to accompany my Medtronic 780G insulin pump. It's all about goddamn money. Now, I am a tiny bit more positive about hospital care, though only by a little margin. Seeing as Amphia, the hospital I currently do my checkups with, only got rid of Windows XP a year or two ago, I constantly run into problems with communication. Sure, they have, 5,000 on staff, but come on. Do I really have to get a printout to take home with me so I can give out some blood samples 6 months later? Really? How does that work? And that's not even talking about the millions of different portals they all use and want to force down our throats. MyAmphia by means of DGD, Mininet Mobile, LibraLink, Authenticator, Irma, MyHealth.net. They can't get any of them to work properly or correspond with another. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But okay, I'll try to calm down. I always try to tell myself that it could be so much worse. Stories that American citizens pay $3,000 for root canal treatment, or have to stock up on insulin in Canada because they can't afford the ridiculous pricing in their own country. Stuff like that doesn't happen here. But still, it is Dutch culture to complain about everything, and so complain I will. The last couple of years have been tough on everyone, but if anyone hasn't had the brunt of the problems with the whole pandemic and all, it would be the insurance companies. Sure, the hospitals are dog crap, but these professionals at least try to be normal human beings, and they actually have had a rough time dealing with an increase of patients. Insurance companies, not so much. But yeah, like I said, I am glad with the help I get overall. The ambulance at my house last week wasn't paid for with my own money, and I don't have to bend over backwards or ration to get my daily insulin shots. But God, they try to make life difficult sometimes. Bad communication, worse payouts, victim guilt tripping. Let's just agree that people who need care, and in my expertise those who suffer from a potentially life-threatening illness called type 1 diabetes, should not be the ones suffering more simply because a few assholes were too cheap or too far removed from the actual care itself to get something that might help them to survive. Anyway, that is it for this episode of the Why Never To podcast. In this case, about diabetes. Number 6. What do you think? Did you enjoy it? Do you agree with me or disagree with me completely? Please let me know. You can find me absolutely everywhere. So far, it has been fun, and I'm gonna leave it right there for you to decide. Hopefully, I'll talk to you very soon with a new episode of the Why Never To podcast.